Hello and welcome back to Galgorm Hall. In this video I'm going to build a mimic panel for the branch side of the layout. So let's get cracking. For those of you with long memories and have been a subscriber to my channel for some time, you may well remember me fitting cobalt motors to this side of the layout. They are DCC fitted, and as good as they are, I have found that whenever I'm trying to change those point motors through the NCE power cab that I use, it can be a little bit of a faff. One, you have to remember what number you assigned to your point motor, which I suppose I could write down, but also if you have 2 or maybe even 3 point motors to change, you've got to go in, make the change, come out, go in again, make another change and go out, and it's just a little bit slow. I always thought that I would go down the road of making a mimic panel, and even with these cobalt motors I feel that's a necessity to give me much more enjoyment out of running trains and locos in around this area. So with that in mind, I went down to the range yesterday and I was looking for a picture frame, and I wanted something just with plain black trim that would give a little bit of added detail to that panel. And I came up with a 10x8 one. This only cost me something like £2.50. So the idea would be that it would sit in there like that. Now I'm going to need to build a frame in this area here, just a basic timber frame to give the support, and it'll also help house all the wiring that's in behind. And then the frame itself with its board will just have the DPT switches fitted onto it, and then everything else can be worked into the gubbins on the actual frame itself. Now whenever I bought this frame, I had hoped that it was going to be one of these sort of hardboard or MDF type backings that you get, but I guess for £2.50 that was asking too much, and what I've actually ended up with is a sheet of card. So I'm going to have to either buy a piece of acrylic that will fit that size there, or go down the road of buying a sheet of or a piece of board, sand it back, spray it and prime it and spray it in white so that it's ready, because my next job after that will be to fit it's car lining tape, or they call it pinstripe tape I think it was, and this is 3mm black pinstripe tape which I will use to mark out the lines for the track work, so that whenever they converge, that's where I would put my switch. But anyway, first off, what I need to do is build this frame, so I'm going to go off and do that, and we'll come back whenever that's done. I've just had a little rummage around the roof space and actually came across a picture frame that was just slightly too big, that would have been actually ideal otherwise, but what it did have was one of these hardboard backings to it, which is exactly what I was looking for to fit this picture frame. I've had to trim it slightly using a Stanley knife, just running a blade through it a number of times until I actually got the cut. I think it's just compressed cardboard or paper, you know, that's all bound together, but it's got a fantastically smooth surface. So I think if this is primed, and then I've picked up some, it's called appliance paint, and it's white, which I'm assuming is for touching up old white goods, you know, tumble dryers, that sort of thing there, you know, but it'll give a nice gloss finish to this surface. So before I do that, what I want to do is, I have taken a rough drawing of how the track work will look, and I've converted it to what was actually the piece of paper that came inside this frame initially, and I've drawn it in black marker. And what I can do with that is, by putting it inside, placing the backing on the top, and we'll flip it over, and that is our very simple mimic panel track plan. So if you can imagine the branch station, the station platform is here, the angular track along here is where the coal lathe and the goods platform is. This is the terminus siding for a short DMU, and this is the run round loop for getting past any parking trains at the main platform of the station. Now, by having this set into place, I know exactly the dimensions of it. If I can get the thing in. Now, with this in place, I know exactly how it should be sitting. And if I take my pin vise with a drill, what I want to do is to drill through at least some of the way so I can see the markings on the board beneath. And we'll do that for all four. That'll do for now. We'll just to demonstrate. So hopefully you can see here, here, here and here are the holes that are marked. Now what I need to do is to drill those out, because the DP, oh my goodness, I can't say that at all. The head of the DPD switches are quite big. They'll need sort of probably a 5 or maybe even a 6mm drill bit. This whole screwed section needs to be fed through, and then it's held in place by a little nut on the underside of it. You feed your washers on, and then you apply your nut on the upper side too, and it all looks quite smart. But I want to drill the holes in this first before I prime and paint, so that's hence the marking up. So I'll go and do that, get it all primed, painted, and we'll be ready for the next stage. Okay, so one cabinet in place. It's a very simple structure that I've built. Basically it is 2x1 timbers top and bottom with a sort of a wedge type triangular side of ply either side, and then I've got another strip of ply in the center here. This will be used for mounting the block connectors on, so that the wires come in from there before they go to the DPDT switches on the panel. The frame itself has had a piano hinge added to it as well, and just mounted onto a little bit of ply at the bottom. And then if I flip it up, you can see the panel itself has been primed, and then it's had that white appliance spray paint that I picked up from Halfords put onto the top of that, and I think it doesn't look too bad. So there's a few more things to do before I get to the point of actually wiring the interior. One of them is to get the car lining tape or the pinstripe tape put onto the paneling, so that I know where I'm going to be positioning my switches. And then also I just want to give this all a lick of black paint, the same as what the trim is here, just to blend it all in a wee bit. So a few wee jobs to do. I'll take you over to the workbench and we'll look at the pinstripe tape, and I'll crack on with this painting as well. Okay, so over to the workbench, and we have the panel. Now you will see, since you saw it there on the actual frame, that I've already gone ahead and drilled out the holes for the switches. This was done using a 5.5mm drill bit, which fit snugly these DPDT switches. I'm just going to have to start calling them switches from now on, because I can't get that lettering at all. Now the switches, I've already got them soldered ready for fitting into the decoder, and rather than trying to show you how that works over on the layout, where it's going to be very difficult to do it underneath, I have a spare decoder here. On the DCC Concepts decoders, excuse me, on the DCC Concept decoders, you will see the little tag there, switch wiring only. If you're going to create a mimic panel, you need to remove that sticker, and it exposes the remaining 3 ports on the motor. So if I bring it closer, you will hopefully see there PBSL, PBSC and PBS-R are the 3 ports on the right hand side, and each of those will take one of these switches or one of these wires. So in the case of the switch itself, your blue and white in my case will be PBS-L, the green will PBS center, and the black and white will be PBS right. And they just slot into the little ports, and that's it. Now you'll also see I have the lines marked out for the pinstripe tape. Now I think this pinstripe tape is quite an odd sort of thing. The reason I've marked it out is so that I don't go sort of too far beyond. The pinstripe tape comes in a wee strip like this, and there's a white adhesive backing at behind it, which you remove from the black lining, like so. You place that on, and then you can peel the clear bit of plastic away from the top, and we can put it on. Now I want to try and do this as neatly as I can, so I think what I'm going to do is get the ruler out and measure each of these sections and cut a strip that suits each one of them, and particularly on where can we catch that in the light? Yeah, just there, where we have the angle section on this piece here. I need to sort of do a wee angle on the cut of the tape. So I'm going to go off and I'll do that. I'm going to get this panel fitted on to the cabinet itself, and we'll look at the wiring up, the simple wiring up that I'm going for in behind the cabinet to put those wires into the motors. Well, it's in, but it didn't go without some complications, most of which come from my inability to work with electrical wiring, but I'll come to that. As you can see there, I have the box all in, the markings are all in place, and the DP-DT switches are also installed. Let me open it up for you. Now, a couple of little modifications. I added a little brass clasp on the top here, and there's another little bit just, hopefully you can see there, on the frame, and that just locks the frame with a nice click into place, and it means it's not going to drop down inadvertently. The panel that I had set in at the back, you'll probably not be able to see it just as well now that it's been painted in the black, but it used to be on the front of the frame, but I've actually set it into the back. I discovered whenever you get all these bits and pieces added on to the board, there's very little space in there, so it just gave a little bit more depth to the actual cabinet. You'll also see that I have a row of block connectors on both sides, and the wires from the switches are going into a block connector top and bottom on each side. Why the extra? Well, this isn't quite finished yet. It's as finished as much as I'm going to do for this video. I want to put in directional lighting on the track work. So for example, if the track is directing into the siding, there'll be a green light will come on there, and there'll be a red light on the main part of the line. I have ordered little bezels, something like that anyway, which will house the lighting, the little LEDs, the switch between the green and the red, but they haven't come through yet, and they're not due for another week. I think I maybe have ordered them inadvertently from China. So that is the reason for the extra little bit of block connectors. Now look at that wiring. I've tried to be as neat as I can. I've used little cable ties and tied everything up in underneath the layout as well, as best as I can. There's probably a simpler method to wiring this cabinet up than what I've done, but in all honesty I could understand what I was doing here, and I followed it through, and it wasn't without the help of Steve Skelton, one of my subscribers, to guide me through how to wire this all up in the first place. The DCC Concepts Cobalt motors are brilliant. They perform really well, and they're very easy to wire up. One thing I did find a little bit difficult, and in actual fact I had to change a motor over to a newer one, was the little switches that clasp the wire into place. I found in a couple of instances weren't really grabbing the wire. Now I don't know whether that is a case of me using too thick a gauge of wire. I did try a couple of different ones. I tried to tin the wire as well going into it. It just wasn't grabbing at all. So whether the little connection inside or that had been damaged from a previous layout, I just don't know. It wasn't a new motor that I had used. It had come off somebody else's layout and he had given me these motors. So I'm not sure, but it was frustrating. I spent an hour and a half underneath the layout one evening just trying to get the thing sorted, and eventually it required a replacement motor and everything's working fine now. But it's a minor issue, I guess, but you know, it added an extra evening to the work. But look, the wiring's in now. As I say, it is simplistic, but I can understand it, and that's all that matters. So the only thing left to do is to test it. Now I have run a few trains back and forth, and the operational aspect of it's really good. So just to finish this video, it's maybe a little bit of overkill, but I've got this Jubilee class logo and three wagons on the back of it, and I'm just going to travel it in to the branch, unhook it and park it up along in the goods siding, just to demonstrate the ease of use of this Mimic panel. Let's get to it. there we go. I hope you enjoyed that video. We will come back to this at a future point whenever I get those bezels, and we'll install the LEDs onto that Mimic panel too. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll chat again to you soon. Bye.